Hi everyone, welcome back. So I said in my last video I wanted to sort of cover solution architecture role. I gave a bit of history about how I saw certainly solution architecture sort of title come about. Now, solution architecture role I'm going to describe, and the reason why I say it's a role is that with roles, there's that whole thing about a person on the team may play one role, or they might play multiple roles, or you might have multiple people playing a single role in a team. So, an example of that is, maybe your team lead on a team is playing the role of, say, Scrum Master. They might be a proxy product owner. They might, I don't know what, be running some sort of like project management side of things, sort of reporting, etc. So one person playing multiple roles. You may also have a situation where you have maybe a business analyst on your team, and they are doing all the sort of analysis documents, so typical sort of business analysis role, but also they're working with the quality assurance side of things and creating test scripts, etc. So that's really example of one person playing multiple roles. You can also have a situation where multiple people are playing the same role. So you certainly get this with regards to, say, development on a team. You'll have multiple developers, multiple people all playing the same role as a developer. You can also get it with DevOps as well, where, maybe again, the people are the developers are doing the DevOps. So you sort of, there is definitely a difference between a person and a role. So solution architecture role is what I wanted to talk about, because I think it's important where this title has actually changed over time. So I have played the role of solution architect before. Like I said in the previous video, it sort of ended up becoming a title, and I think I was probably playing a solution architecture role even before the sort of role came about. In Discipline Agile delivery, there's a role which is an architecture owner role, and I think quite a lot of us do that as well. If we've been solution architects, that's another sort of role we do, whether or not we actually sort of know what that is until they come up with the title. So solution architect, to me, owns a definite deliverable, and this is more aligned with TOGAF, but I think it's useful to sort of have it as a, what does this person own? So this thing has so many names across so many organizations, but I'm going to call it this. So this is a architecture design document. So this is something that I feel quite strongly about with regards to the importance of this. The reason is it's a document, which means it can be signed off at a point in time. One of the challenges I have with models, and I do like models, but one of the problems I have with models is that they're way too easy for people to say, oh, sorry, I need to regenerate that. Oh, sorry, I need to regenerate it again. Oh, I need to regenerate it again. And what happens is it's a good view on what something looks like at the time, but it doesn't tell you whether the intention was there to arrive at the model you have. So, it's sort of a bit like checks in the post type thing, I haven't quite done it yet. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that bit. Don't worry, it will be done. The good thing about a document is that it can be signed off as a version, and everyone can see what was agreed by all the different stakeholders. So, soapbox about a document. Anyway, solution architect owns the architecture design document. Now, the architecture design document, again, if you're sort of working with TOGAF, will cover sort of the business side of things, the actual design of the system, and I'll call it a system in terms of what those things can mean, like an application or a website or services or whatever it is, data store, whatever. So business side of things, and now application side of things, or the system side of things. Where the thing's going to be hosted, so where the system's going to be hosted, data and data structure, what's going to be stored, how it's going to be stored, etc. Deployment processes, environments, pretty much everything that will dictate how this thing's going to be built, how's it going to be maintained, how's it going to run in the future, and really what is the total cost of ownership? What are all the things that have been thought about? So that's what an architecture design document does. Now, solution architect role, owning that document, you can see that's quite an important role. And it's quite easy to sort of say, dismiss this and just say, oh, this is waterfall. Don't worry about that. That's not agile. We don't do this. The whole thing with agile is that agile works within a context, and this is more talking about the context in which agile will succeed. This isn't something that's a byproduct of agile. This is something that sets the context in which a team can deliver in an agile manner, and tick all the boxes in terms of security, cost, intention, strategy, alignment with the organization goals, etc. So that's what the solution architect role does. Owns. Now, what I tend to see is that the solution architect will face off to various different people. So they will usually sort of dotted line report to enterprise architecture. And the reason for that is that enterprise architecture will guide them in terms of the delivery of the architecture design document. So an architecture design document, will often include, this is how we align to the architecture standards. This is how we are delivering aspects of the strategic architecture. These are the considerations around how we are reusing this architectural component. There's sort of the concept of solution building blocks and architectural building blocks. It will link back to the business architecture, say that these are business capabilities that we are delivering from the system. So with all of that, enterprise architecture are a stakeholder, but obviously there's a lot of input from enterprise architecture. So solution architect does sort of dotted line report through to enterprise architecture. The challenge with that, if they only just reported through to enterprise architecture, is that enterprise architecture is almost like a sort of moving target, purely because of the size of it. So, if you've got a strategy, architecture strategy, enterprise architecture will want to deliver all of that strategy. And so the challenge with that is that there needs to be sort of some constraints in terms of, delivery and timescales. If you need to build a system to, say, advertise some amazing bank account or whatever, or service that you're going to start selling to your customers, and you need it to be out there in 3 months, you can't spend 2 years delivering the strategic framework foundation that will help the organization in the next 10 years or whatever, because you need to hit that sort of 3-month window. So the reason I'm saying this is you have that sort of delivery constraint as well. So the solution architect usually will belong to a delivery team. And one of the things you find in organizations is quite often, an enterprise architecture team are funded as an enterprise architecture team. So they're sort of funded ongoing. Now they might expand or contract based on scale of change or mergers or whatever, but they're sort of funded on an ongoing sort of operational basis. Solution architects tend to be there to deliver change, so actually they align far best to sort of change delivery team, because they will be on a project, they'll be funded for that project, and then when that project's delivered, then they'll probably go to another project. They might have some sort of proportion of their time supporting the system, but they're not like sort of, after you've done your delivery into production, they're not something that will be there in perpetuity dedicated, because there's sort of, you imagine the involvement, at the point at which you're defining the architecture, 100%. When you're building it, maybe a little less, doesn't need to be, but maybe a little less. You're testing it, etc. You're doing the updates in terms of, actually this is stuff we didn't manage to do, goes live, some sort of warranty or whatever. But after that, if the thing isn't going through another release or isn't going through a whole load of other change, then solution architect will go on to another project. So they do align with the delivery team, and they obviously, because they're usually a senior role, and because they're, like say with the architecture design, they're sort of covering business, application, you're doing that. Business application, hosting or infra, data, and security. I sort of cover risk there as well. Because they are covering all those things in the architecture design document, they will also face off to business stakeholders. Other set of stakeholders are these sort of operational support people. And I think this is quite an interesting sort of group, because you can think about, I mean, depending on what your organization is, sort of like service reliability engineers or run function or whatever they're called. But the solution architect will need to talk to not just the technology people, but also the sort of business ones as well. So if there are, for instance, new account codes or something that need to be loaded up into a system, or new product codes, or whatever it is, this more businessy side, they still need to talk to them, and it's still operational. It's where the system is going to support ongoing. So, solution architect faces off to all these guys. There are others as well. I mean, you can see sort of like security and risk. Obviously, so security, sometimes it's sort of aligned with the enterprise architecture function. Risk in terms of operational risk. There, compliance, etc. But they're usually separate parts. But anyway, so you have these are sort of some of the stakeholders that I've pulled out. Just going to put others there. We obviously sort of cover it if we need to. So that is what the solution architect needs to provide, and then these are some of the stakeholders that they work with, and a description of actually what the role of the solution architect is and how it's sort of funded. So that's all good. So with all of this, and with the architecture design, a solution architect needs to have obviously quite a big breadth in terms of their understanding, so they can't just talk specifically about the business side of things and not understand what a database is, or what web servers are, or whatever it is. They can't just focus on business without understanding technology, and that obviously that's just an example of technology components, but it goes on and on. They need to be very well diversified in terms of their knowledge across business, security, applications, infra, etc. Now, that isn't to say that they won't get SME involvement, but they should at least understand that there is a requirement for SME involvement where they need it. So, the understanding that you need to ensure that the application is safe from a security point of view, and that it will have a pen test, and that some of the pen test findings will be solved by web application firewall or by code changes, etc. They're all things at that sort of level solution architect would need to know. I would hope that they're sort of deeper on one of the other areas. So, for instance, they might be an absolute whiz with regards to web frameworks, or mobile devices, or whatever else. But they need to know quite a lot about quite a lot of areas, and that goes for the individual slices as well. So what I mean by this is, if you're there and you solution architect has worked with enterprise architecture guys, girls, business architects, whatever, and they know from business point of view what needs to happen from a strategy and direction point of view. The enterprise architecture, they've spoken to stakeholders, they understand what's happening, they've probably worked on sort of providing information for the business case, some sort of indication of costs ongoing. In other words, sort of break-even point is this. There's a reason why we're doing this. So they've covered that off. Now, with the application side of things, now I'm just using the phrases that you get within TOGAF, but like I was saying, I tend to try and use system rather than application, because people sometimes just assume it's an application on a mobile phone or an application on a computer or whatever. Application. Now, the reason why this is really important is this is sort of what I was talking about with one of my other videos. I've already described about SMEs with an enterprise architecture team providing SMEs, for if our solution architect wasn't very detailed in security, maybe they get an SME in to sort of help them out. Now, with application, you don't need a solution architect that is, say, an expert in mainframes when you're doing a web app. The likelihood that it is so important that they can't just rely on SMEs, i.e. mainframes within a web app, it's quite low. If you found someone, great, but chances are a solution architect who is a whiz in terms of digital side of things will be able to talk to a mainframe person and get what they need. So, there's this thing where you have to sort of target solution architects for the sort of context in which they're working. So let's go with an example on this. So it is a web application, and it's a customer-facing web app. And it is dedicated to showing products. And they are financial products. You can see I've worked in financial services a bit too long. So financial products, how can I spell? So we're going with something that's fairly simple on this. Never remember whether there's two T's in marketing anyway. So customer-facing web app, financial products, and its marketing. And let's also have, it's customer onboarding as well. So if someone says, that's the product for me, how can I get it? Then we have the customer onboarding as well. So with that as an example stack, with a solution architect, I would expect a solution architect to understand web. I'd expect them to understand marketing. Again, from a sort of web aspect. Obviously marketing as well, but that's more on the business side. And then customer onboarding, so customer onboarding generally will be a case of, you need to understand customer data, one thing, so you don't end up with requirements of master data management to solve all your problems. You need to be able to understand. You're going to have to do a search to see whether you've already got a customer there. You're going to have to understand KYC, as financial services example. So customer data and the services. So the services. So they're all like the specific things that a digital architect would need within this stuff. So from that, solution architect knows this. Areas like mainframes, which quite possibly are being used with customer onboarding side of things. Areas such as data warehouse, etc. They're all things they should have an awareness of. They should understand what a mainframe is and maybe how it's different compared to the services that they use, etc. But they don't need to know, specifically what languages the mainframe is coded in. With the data warehouse, they don't need to know specifically how the star scheme has been designed, or all those sort of things. So that's the sort of expertise needed to be a digital architect. Now, sorry, I say digital architect, solution architect role. So with all these things, if you take these, what you really need is you need someone that can say, okay, I understand what the business requirements are, and I know everyone said, we need to use Angular for the web app. I'm not sure if that's the right idea though. I don't think that's a good idea with this, and these are the reasons why. Let's go with Next.js or whatever it is. They should be able to articulate and be aware of the different frameworks that are available, so they can offer up suggestions as you go along, and come up in the same way that they've come up with sort of business strategy and the reason for doing the business a certain way, maybe what the priority requirements are and priority sort of flows are. They need to be able to come up with justification as to why the application architecture is the way it is. So in the example, like JavaScript frameworks, They need to understand whether you're going to go with sort of device-specific apps or whether you're going to go with web with sort of responsive type approach. From a point of view of marketing, they need to understand, all right, how do you want to do your analytics? Do you want to do things like A/B testing? Do you want to have adverts on the rest of the site pointing to this side of things? What capabilities are there? Do you want to go, for instance, with AEM or another whatever? And with regards to customer data and services, they need to be able to understand, what options they've got there. What main credit checking services are there? What are the best ones to use in this case? Is there sort of geographical reason why you go with one over another? What products in this space overlap? Do the services need to be sort of asynchronous, sort of fire and forget, or they need to be like sort of synchronous response? All those sort of things. They need to be able to be informed enough to guide the architecture in the right direction if needed. So, in the next video, I'll cover where I think there is a bit of a mismatch with this.